You've never really had anything. No one has ever truly belonged to you. Your father is gone, your relationship ended, that childhood friendship faded into silence. The dream job you thought would define your life let you go. And no matter how hard you try to hold on, everything slips away. The cruelest part? You already knew it would. Deep down, you always knew that nothing lasts forever. But you pretend. You believe the lie. You convince yourself that this time it will stay, that this person, this moment, this feeling will remain. And when it doesn't, you suffer like the world betrayed you. But the world owes you nothing. The love of your life doesn't belong to you. Your children aren't yours. Not even your body is truly yours. It will age, weaken, decay, and leave you behind. And yet you live as if you could trap time in your hands. That's the tragedy. You suffer for things that were never yours to begin with. Buddha said this. Lao Tzu said this. Epictetus said this. It's the entire history of humanity trying to scream one truth into your soul. Let go. Because it's the holding that destroys you. Your pain doesn't come from loss. It comes from the illusion that you had something to lose. Think about it. How many people do you know who were swallowed by grief, not because of love itself, but because of attachment? How many lives fell apart because someone left and that person had built their entire identity on the presence of another? That's not love. That's imprisonment. And the cruel part? We're taught to live this way. From childhood, you're told to want, to desire, to achieve, to hold. But no one teaches you to release. No one teaches you to let go, to accept the end when it comes. But every beginning carries its ending inside it. Everything that is born is already dying. Lao Tzu wrote, "Hold on to nothing, and nothing can destroy you." This isn't about becoming cold or emotionless. It's about freedom, the only real freedom, the freedom of not needing to keep anything to be whole. If you've ever lost something that tore you apart, if you've ever felt that ripping silence inside your chest, you need to hear this, because you will die, and everything you call yours will keep existing without you. Your partner will move on. Your money will change hands. Your clothes will rot in a closet or end up in a thrift store. Your children might never visit your grave. Your name will be forgotten. And yet you live as if you owned the world, as if possession were real. But possession is a fiction, a psychological play, a collective myth that collapses the moment reality steps in. Buddha taught that human suffering doesn't come from pain itself, but our desperate need to control what cannot be controlled. He called it tanha, thirst, craving, attachment, that invisible hunger that turns every experience into something we want to keep. And that's why we suffer, because the world was never meant to stay. Everything that is born will die. Everything that comes together will fall apart. The ego refuses to accept this. It wants eternity. It wants security. It wants to say, this is mine, this will last, this belongs to me. But reality does not recognize emotional contracts. It only recognizes impermanence. Look at couples who treat each other like property. My wife, my husband. See the madness behind the phrase, if I can't have you, no one can. That's not love. That's fear. That's despair disguised as devotion. Even when we say, my daughter, it reveals that same obsession with ownership. But our children aren't ours. They belong to the world. They have their own souls, their own destinies. And one day, they too will leave. The same truth applies to work, health, friends, even your beliefs. Epictetus wrote, "You begin to live truly only when you accept that nothing belongs to you." That line could have come from Buddha himself, because truth, when it's deep enough, transcends philosophy. Neuroscience confirms it. Our brain's reward system links pleasure with repetition. When something feels good, a face, a memory, a place, the brain records it as something to keep. But reality doesn't care about that script. And the more you cling, the more fragile you become. Because now your peace depends on something unstable, something outside of you. You lose it, you suffer. It changes, you suffer. It stays, you suffer because you live in fear of losing it. You chain yourself, and you call it love. A father loses his son in an accident. He grieves, of course, but what destroys him isn't the absence itself. It's the attachment, the illusion that the boy was his, that they would always have time, that dying first was a betrayal. The pain explodes because it collides with an unspoken expectation. This wasn't supposed to happen. But it was, because it happens every day. The tragedy isn't the ending. The tragedy is believing the ending would never come. Buddha said, "The world is on fire. You embrace it and expect not to burn." That's attachment. Holding fire and expecting warmth, not flames. Expecting a flower not to wither, a moment not to fade, a presence not to leave. That's ignorance disguised as romance. When we say nothing is yours, we're not trying to depress you, we're trying to set you free. You don't have to keep suffering trying to hold what cannot be held. You don't have to destroy yourself with jealousy, control, and anxiety. You can love fully only when you stop trying to possess. Love that clings imprisons. Love that releases blooms. It's not about becoming cynical. It's about looking straight into reality and saying, I accept. I accept that everything is passing. I accept that I own nothing. And because of that, everything touches me more deeply. Everything you love will change. Everything you fear will change. Your entire life right now, as you're hearing this, is already slipping quietly into the past, and no one ever prepares you for that. You live and love as if everything were permanent. You make plans as if the universe has signed a contract with your hopes. You beg for joy to stay, for beauty not to fade, for people not to leave, for your body not to age. But everything passes. Lao Tzu warned, what is hard and rigid belongs to death. What is soft and flexible belongs to life. The more you try to freeze the flow of life, the more it breaks you. There are people who spend their entire lives trying to keep something alive that already died. A broken marriage, a childhood dream, a version of themselves that no longer exists. But reality doesn't wait for your permission. It changes anyway. The more you resist, the more you suffer. There is no stability, only movement. There is no control, only participation. The Tao, as Lao Tzu described it, isn't something you manage, it's something you move with. The wise don't fight the current, they learn to flow with it. Why does this matter? Because every ounce of your suffering comes from a war between reality and expectation. You want something to last, but it won't. You want someone to stay, but they will go. You want a perfect moment to repeat, but it never will. Sadness is born from trying to hold on to what was always meant to leave. Zhuangzi wrote, "Sorrow comes from wanting to make the world stand still." He took this truth to its limit. When his wife died, he didn't cry. He played a drum and danced, saying, before she was born, she didn't exist. Now she has returned to that same place. Why should I weep? It wasn't coldness, it was understanding. He wasn't denying love, he was accepting the end. This philosophy isn't heartless, it's honest. More honest than building emotional altars to what will never return. More honest than pretending you can control the uncontrollable. Think of the man who loses everything in a natural disaster. Think of the parent who buries a child. Think of the woman betrayed after years of loyalty. Think of the man who dedicated his life to a company and was discarded with a single letter. Their pain is real, but beneath it lies an expectation that it was supposed to be different, that life was supposed to play fair. But life doesn't make promises, it moves. And in that movement lies both its cruelty and its beauty. Nothing lasts. Not because life is cruel, but because life is alive. The seasons change, tides rise and fall, faces age, bodies weaken, emotions shift, beliefs evolve. The universe dances, and everything that exists moves to its rhythm. This is not a flaw, it's the essence of existence. Modern neuroscience calls it hedonic adaptation. Every pleasure fades, Because the brain adjusts. Every victory, every love, every high, it all normalizes. You can't freeze joy any more than you can stop time. Nothing is fixed, not euphoria, not pain, not attachment. But instead of flowing with this, we build cages made of desire. We tell ourselves, I'll be happy if it stays, if I keep it, if it lasts. And every one of those sentences is a lie, because nothing stays, nothing lasts, nothing remains. Trying to defend attachment against impermanence is like arguing with the wind for changing direction. When you cling, you fight the nature of life itself. Attached, you live in war with time. Detached, you live in peace with reality. Detachment isn't about indifference. It's not about loving less. It's about loving without fear. To hold someone with open hands instead of clenched fists. To love like water flows, not to own, but to nourish and let go. You can love deeply without trying to freeze what you love. You can be grateful without demanding permanence. True peace begins where the need to control ends. You've spent your whole life trying to control the uncontrollable. People, time, feelings, outcomes. You tell yourself stories about how things should be, how life should reward effort, how others should love you back. But should is the language of resistance, not truth. Nothing in nature argues with reality. The river doesn't resist the rocks, it flows around them. The tree doesn't fight the storm, it bends. Only the human mind creates suffering by wanting the world to obey its expectations. The irony is that the more you try to control, the more powerless you feel. And the more you surrender, the freer you become. Detachment is not giving up, it's waking up. It's seeing clearly that holding on to passing things is like trying to trap light in your hands. It disappears the moment you clutch it. Freedom isn't found in having, but in being. When you stop needing everything to stay, you finally start to see everything as it is, temporary, beautiful, alive. So stop asking the world to promise you eternity. It can only offer you moments. And if you learn to love those moments without trying to own them, you'll find something far greater than control. You'll find peace.
You are not who you think you are, and you never were. The name you were given, the stories you tell about yourself, the memories you protect, the ideas you defend, none of that is truly you. They are layers, accumulated masks built on top of something that might not even exist in the way you imagine. The Buddhist philosopher Nagarjuna called this shunyata, the void, not emptiness as despair, but emptiness as freedom. Empty of fixed essence, empty of permanence, empty of self. Nothing exists by itself. Everything depends on everything else. You are like a wave, visible, beautiful, and full of form, but made entirely of ocean. You have no independent identity. You rise, you fall, you disappear, and yet you never stop being the sea. When the wave breaks, it doesn't die. It returns to what it always was. You insist, this is who I am, this is me. But who is that me? What's left if you strip away your name, your nationality, your body, your beliefs, your voice, your memories? What remains when all of that goes silent? You cling to people, yes, but even more you cling to the idea of yourself. You crave recognition, respect, validation. You want to be someone, to be seen as worthy, as good, as successful. But what if that someone doesn't really exist? What if it's just a story, an echo held together by thought and fear? The truth is, your greatest suffering doesn't come when the world rejects you, it comes when the world contradicts your story about yourself. You suffer not because you lost love, but because losing love made you question your worth. You suffer not because life changed, but because the change shattered your illusion of control. You suffer not because someone left, but because their leaving made your reflection disappear. You built your identity on fragile ground, and when the wind blows, it collapses. But that collapse isn't your destruction, it's your awakening. If there's no fixed you, then there's nothing to protect. And if there's nothing to protect, there's nothing to hurt. That's the freedom Nagarjuna spoke of. Freedom from the illusion of being someone. Neuroscience agrees. The self is not a thing, it's a process. There is no single point in the brain that houses a solid I. What exists is a continuous interaction of memories, sensations, perceptions, a symphony without a conductor. The you that exists right now isn't the same you from 5 minutes ago. So why defend a version of yourself that no longer exists? Why cling to an image that keeps dissolving? Because the ego is terrified of vanishing. It fears being nothing. But that nothing is not a void, it's spaciousness, it's peace. Notice how most of your pain has to do with your ego being wounded. They didn't value me, they humiliated me, they forgot me. Every one of these wounds begins with me. And yet, that me is a thought, a projection, a temporary illusion. If you look closely, it's not even there. What if you could let go of the need to be someone? What if you could exist without the burden of a fixed identity? Imagine being free from the constant performance of being you, free from defending your past, your opinions, your image. You'd still feel sadness, but it wouldn't consume you. You'd still experience loss, but it wouldn't destroy you. You could fail without collapsing, love without owning, live without clinging, because now there's no you left to protect. Just awareness, just presence, just life moving through you. Zhuangzi once wrote about dreaming he was a butterfly. When he woke up, he didn't know if he was a man dreaming of being a butterfly or a butterfly dreaming of being a man. That wasn't a riddle, it was enlightenment disguised as poetry. The boundary between you and the world, between dream and reality, is thinner than you think. You are both, and neither. Every time you say mine, every time you say me, you're speaking from that illusion. And every time you try to defend it, you suffer. But when you release it, when you let go of even the you who wants everything to make sense, something miraculous happens. The suffering doesn't vanish, but it loses its grip. The pain is still there, but you stop being its prisoner. You stop saying, I am sad, and begin to see there is sadness. You stop saying, I am broken, and begin to see there is pain. You stop identifying with every passing emotion and thought. You stop building your house in a storm. When you release the idea of self, the world stops being against you because there's no longer a you to be against. Life becomes what it always was, just life, flowing, breathing, changing. That's not emptiness. That's freedom. You want everything. You want attention, peace, success, love, recognition, comfort, adventure, stability, freedom, control. You want to be noticed, respected, admired, understood. You want to feel alive but also safe, wild but secure, unique but accepted. You live in a constant tug of war between desire and exhaustion. You run endlessly, chasing satisfaction that vanishes the moment you touch it. You learn to live like a starving animal, always reaching for the next thing, the next validation, the next illusion of fulfillment. No one told you that the more you want, the less you have. Epicurus once said, "Nothing is enough for the man to whom enough is too little." This simple sentence dismantles the entire logic of the modern world. Everywhere you look, you are surrounded by voices whispering that you need more. More money, more time, more beauty, more achievement, more followers, more meaning. But the paradox is this: desire never delivers what it promises. It promises relief, but gives dependence. You want something, you get it, you feel joy for a moment, and then you want again. The satisfaction fades, the pleasure evaporates, and what remains is the same restless hunger. That hunger is what Buddha called tanha, the thirst that enslaves. Freedom doesn't come from having more, it comes from needing less. Epicurus wrote, "Freedom is not found in multiplying possessions, but in reducing desires." You weren't born unsatisfied, you were taught to be. Since childhood, people have asked you, what do you want to be when you grow up, as if wanting were the essence of living. You were trained to believe that life is a ladder you must climb, a series of goals you must conquer. But no one told you that peace doesn't live at the top. The result? A world full of people drowning in anxiety, chasing dreams they don't even need, measuring their worth by things that vanish. Most people don't suffer from lack, they suffer from excess. Too many expectations, too many comparisons, too many voices telling them who to be. You scroll through lives that aren't yours and call it inspiration, but it's quiet poison. You think you're not enough because the world keeps selling you that feeling. And the tragedy is you buy it. Seneca once wrote, "It is not poverty that afflicts us, but the endless desire for more." You already have enough to live, but you don't believe it because the world keeps screaming that you're incomplete. Who told you that lie? Who decided that peace isn't enough unless it comes wrapped in success? Modern science has a cruel insight into this. Dopamine, the neurotransmitter of desire, doesn't spike when you get what you want, it spikes when you're about to get it. You're wired to crave, not to be content. That's why social media, casinos, even relationships feed the same loop: anticipation, reward, emptiness, repeat. The brain keeps chasing the promise, never the peace. This is the cycle of craving, the rat race with no finish line. You think you're choosing, but in truth you're being led by invisible strings. The same mechanism that makes you refresh your phone is the one that made ancient humans hunt endlessly. The object changes, the hunger remains. The only escape is awareness. When you see the trap, it starts to lose power. Attachment to desire is mental slavery. Epictetus knew this intimately. He was born a slave, yet he said, "The truly free man is the one who depends on nothing outside himself." If you want to be invincible, don't fight battles whose outcome isn't in your control. That's the wisdom of freedom. What depends on you? Your choices, your attitude, your response to what life brings. Everything else, the opinions of others, the results, the weather of emotions, is not your territory. You suffer because you try to control what is not yours to command. You want people to like you, you want the boss to notice you, you want the world to play by your rules. But none of this is within your reach. You confuse the stage with the soul. The world is scenery, not self. You grow stronger not when you control, but when you let go. Marcus Aurelius, writing on his deathbed, said, "All that is external is smoke, blown by the wind." The only fortress is a calm mind, and a calm mind is a choice, an act of rebellion, a quiet revolution. It's not apathy, it's clarity. It's not numbness, it's wisdom. It's the power to say, "I will care deeply, but I will not cling. I will act fully, but I will not expect." Because every disappointment you've ever felt was born from a promise that existed only in your imagination. You expected loyalty, gratitude, reciprocity, fairness, and the world didn't comply. But the world never agreed to your rules. You suffer because you mistake your expectations for reality. You think you were betrayed, but you weren't. You gave faith where only freedom existed. You think you were wronged, but you weren't. You asked for justice from a system that never promised fairness. You think you were abandoned, but you weren't. You simply forgot that no one is obliged to choose you. The Stoic philosopher Pyrrho said, "Suspend judgment and suffering disappears." He wasn't being cynical. He was being lucid. The problem isn't what happens, it's what you think should have happened. You suffer not from reality, but from your argument with it. No one promised you anything, and that is the beginning of liberation.
Nothing is guaranteed, nothing is certain, nothing is owed. These words sound harsh, but they're the foundation of peace. You've been taught since childhood to expect things, to expect love for kindness, reward for effort, loyalty for loyalty, meaning for suffering. But the universe doesn't operate on human contracts. It doesn't owe you fairness or justice or reciprocity. You were born into chaos, and you learned to call it order. You were born into impermanence and tried to build permanence on it. Every time you expect the world to behave according to your idea of rightness, you create suffering. When you expect people to love you the way you imagine, you set yourself up for pain. When you expect success to come because you worked hard, you set yourself up for frustration. When you expect life to make sense, you invite disappointment. The truth is, the world doesn't care about your expectations. It moves according to its own rhythm. Fire burns, storms come, people leave, time erases, and none of it is personal. Yet you take everything personally, as if existence were designed around your desires. You've been raised in the illusion of control, and that illusion is the root of your anxiety. Modern psychology calls it the illusion of control bias, the tendency to believe we can influence outcomes we can't. You expect life to be fair, but fairness is a human invention. Nature isn't fair, it's balanced.
Balance includes death as much as life, pain as much as joy, loss as much as gain. Fairness would mean you could rewrite the rules. Balance means you can only learn to dance with them. So what happens when you stop expecting? You stop suffering. You stop creating invisible demands that reality never agreed to fulfill. You start to see things as they are, not as you wish them to be. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your judgment about it. And you have the power to revoke this judgment." That's freedom. Neutrality is not coldness, it's emotional maturity. The Stoics called it apatheia, not apathy, but freedom from being enslaved by emotional reactions to things beyond your control. You don't stop feeling, you stop being ruled by what you feel. You stop being a slave to every rise and fall of circumstance. You stop needing the world to understand you. Instead, you start understanding the world. Epictetus said, "Don't expect the world to act according to your will. Learn to will what the world already does." It's not submission, it's alignment. It's not weakness, it's wisdom. You don't need people to respond the way you expect. You don't need life to reward you for your goodness. You don't need the universe to mirror your sense of justice. All you need is to release the invisible contract you've written in your mind, the one where the world owes you something, because it doesn't. And when you finally stop expecting, something miraculous happens. You stop labeling everything as right or wrong, good or bad, success or failure. You start to see life as it is, raw, moving, unfiltered, and astonishingly neutral. You stop demanding and you start witnessing. You stop clinging and you start flowing. The result of this is peace. The peace that comes from no longer depending. The peace that comes from no longer demanding. The peace that comes from no longer expecting. And this isn't detachment in the sense of indifference, it's the birth of clarity. You finally realize that the source of your peace can't be outside of you. It can't be in other people's behavior or in achievements or in comfort. Peace isn't something to find, it's something that appears when you stop resisting what is. Most people spend their lives avoiding these truths. They fill their days with noise, entertainment, distraction, anything to avoid the silence where these realizations echo. But the moment you stop running, when you let silence arrive, something shifts. You start to see that freedom isn't in control, it's in surrender. The end of expectation isn't the end of joy, it's the beginning of peace. You start living from acceptance instead of resistance. You begin to see beauty even in endings, meaning even in pain, and calm even in uncertainty. You stop needing promises because you understand that the only promise life ever made is change. When you accept that, everything softens. The world stops being an enemy to fight and becomes a teacher to listen to. You begin to live lightly. You stop clutching at moments and start moving with them. You stop arguing with time. You start breathing again. And for the first time, perhaps in your entire life, you feel a quiet kind of joy. The joy that doesn't depend on anything staying the same. The joy of finally letting go.
You've been staring at the truth for years, but you keep looking away because it terrifies you. You know that nothing lasts, that everyone leaves, that every joy has an expiration date, but you keep pretending that maybe this time it'll be different. Maybe this love will stay. Maybe this peace will last. You cling to hope like a shield against the inevitable. But hope without acceptance is just denial wearing a prettier face. You call it faith, but often it's just fear of seeing things as they are. You are afraid to live without guarantees. You are afraid of uncertainty, of chaos, of endings. But uncertainty is the birthplace of every beginning. The moment you try to turn life into something predictable, you stop living and start managing. You start treating existence like a contract instead of a mystery. And that's why you feel so tired. You weren't built to control. You were built to experience. You were built to flow, to feel, to change. The need for control is just the ego's last defense against impermanence. It's the desperate voice inside saying, if I can plan enough, prepare enough, hold tight enough, maybe I won't lose. But you will. Everyone does. The secret isn't to fight loss, it's to stop fearing it. You suffer more in imagination than in reality because your mind is constantly rehearsing disasters that haven't happened yet, trying to protect you from pain that doesn't even exist. But what if you stopped rehearsing and simply felt? What if you let life hurt you when it must,
and then let it heal you when it can. You don't need to build armor around your heart, you just need to stop stabbing yourself with expectations. Freedom begins the moment you accept that loss is natural. The moment you stop asking, why me, and start saying, why not me? You are part of everything, and everything that happens to life happens to you. You are not a separate island. You are the ocean pretending to be a wave. When you lose, the universe isn't punishing you, it's just being what it is, impermanent, alive, in motion. The pain you feel when something ends isn't the end itself, it's your resistance to it. It's your refusal to let life move as it does. You don't cry because something is gone, you cry because you can't accept that it was never yours. You think you're mourning a person, a dream, a version of yourself, but what you're really mourning is the illusion of control. The illusion that you could make things stay. You can't. And the sooner you stop trying, the sooner peace begins. Look at nature. The leaves fall and no tree tries to hold them. The river flows and no drop resists its direction. The sun sets and it doesn't fight the darkness. Only humans try to stop the movement of things. Only humans suffer from trying to rewrite the laws of change. The tree doesn't grieve its leaves because it knows new ones will grow. But even if they didn't, it would still stand. That's wisdom. To stand even when stripped bare. To live without clinging to what's already past. Every loss is an invitation to return to what's real. Every ending reminds you that everything you thought you owned was borrowed time. You can fight it or you can bow to it. Bowing doesn't mean defeat, it means seeing clearly. It means saying, I accept that this too belongs to life. That's surrender, not weakness, but trust. Trust that existence knows what it's doing even when you don't. You don't need to understand the pattern to trust the dance. You just need to stop resisting the rhythm. The truth is, the more you let go, the more alive you become. The more you stop clinging to how life should be, the more you can see the beauty and how it is. You realize that loss is not destruction, it's transformation. That endings aren't failures, they're transitions. And that pain isn't punishment, it's purification. Every loss strips away an illusion. Every heartbreak cracks open a deeper space for love. Every fall shatters a false self so that something truer can emerge. This is the hidden mercy inside impermanence. It breaks you, yes, but only to make you real. That's why the wise don't chase stability, they chase awareness. They don't seek comfort, they seek clarity. They don't beg for life to slow down, they learn to breathe with its pace. When you stop demanding that the river flow backward, you stop drowning. You begin to float. You begin to trust. You begin to live. You spend your life chasing what you already have and fearing what you can't avoid. You want happiness, but happiness was never meant to be constant. You want meaning, but meaning is born and reborn every time you let life touch you. You want security, but security is the illusion that stops you from truly living. You build walls, routines, plans, all to hide from uncertainty, but those same walls become your cage. You call it stability, but it's stagnation. You call it safety, but it's slow death. Real life happens in motion, in the unknown, in the in-between. The reason you feel empty isn't because something's missing, it's because you're holding on to what's gone. The reason you feel restless isn't because you don't have enough, it's because you don't know how to stop wanting. You think you're tired because of the world, but what exhausts you is resistance. You're tired of trying to force permanence into a world that breathes change. Every cell in your body is proof of impermanence. Every breath is birth and death happening at once. The moment you inhale, you create life. The moment you exhale, you let it go. You've been practicing detachment every second without realizing it. Life is constantly showing you how to let go, gently, patiently, but you keep clinging. You try to freeze people in time, to trap moments in memory, to hold joy like a photograph. But photographs fade, people change, and memory is only a shadow of something that once lived. The tragedy isn't that things end, it's that you waste so much time pretending they won't. You tell yourself stories to make endings feel wrong, as if continuation were the only proof of worth. But impermanence doesn't erase meaning, it creates it. Things are precious because they end. You love sunsets because they fade. You cherish moments because they pass. If life were permanent, you'd stop noticing it. Beauty exists only because of fragility. That's the secret the universe keeps trying to tell you. Endings are not the opposite of beauty, they are part of it. You were never meant to trap time. You were meant to experience it. That's why detachment isn't apathy, it's intimacy. Only when you stop trying to hold the world do you actually feel it. Only when you stop demanding forever can you see the miracle of now. This moment, this fleeting, vanishing moment, is all you've ever had and all you'll ever need. The irony is that when you stop clinging to it, it becomes infinite. Eternity isn't a stretch of endless time, it's the full presence in one single breath. You want to know why peace feels so far away? Because you keep chasing it in the future when it's always been here, waiting in the space between thoughts. Peace isn't something to earn, it's something to remember. It's what's left when you stop fighting what is. You've mistaken desire for purpose. You've mistaken noise for life. You think passion means control, that love means possession, that freedom means power. But passion without presence is just chaos. Love without freedom is just fear. Freedom without surrender is just ego in disguise. You keep running from silence because silence threatens your identity. In silence, there's nothing to hide behind. No name, no role, no story. Just you, bare and infinite. That's why you avoid it. That's why you fill your life with distractions and noise. But silence isn't empty, it's full of truth. It's where everything you've been avoiding waits patiently to be seen. You think you're afraid of loss, but what you're really afraid of is stillness. Because stillness shows you who you are when there's nothing left to chase. Yet that's the doorway to peace. When you stop searching for meaning and start listening, you realize meaning isn't something to find, it's something that unfolds when you're fully present. You are not meant to conquer life, you are meant to witness it. You are not meant to hold, you are meant to flow. The moment you accept this, you stop living in resistance. You begin to breathe without fear. You begin to love without demand. You begin to exist without clinging to the illusion of control. And that's where real peace begins. Not in holding on, but in letting go without regret. When you finally begin to let go, the world starts to look different. The same streets, the same faces, the same noise, but something inside you softens. You begin to see that everything is temporary, but instead of feeling despair, you feel gratitude. Every smile becomes a miracle, every moment a gift, every breath a privilege. You stop expecting things to stay and start appreciating them for showing up at all. This is what real presence feels like. You no longer look at life through the lens of ownership, but through the eyes of wonder. You stop trying to possess and start to participate. You stop demanding and start to notice. The more you accept impermanence, the more alive you become. The more you release control, the lighter you feel. You realize that letting go isn't losing, it's returning. You aren't losing people, moments, or things. You're just returning them to where they belong. Nothing was ever truly yours. Everything you've ever loved has only passed through you like wind through open hands. You can't keep it, but you can feel it fully as it moves. That's enough. That's everything. We spend our lives trying to make things last. Love, youth, beauty, success. But their impermanence is what makes them beautiful. If love lasted forever, it would stop being extraordinary. If youth stayed, it would lose its fire. If every joy were endless, it would cease to matter. The finite is what makes life sacred. Every goodbye carves a space in you that becomes your depth. Every loss teaches you how to love without chains. When you start to understand this, peace doesn't come from what stays. It comes from your ability to let things go with grace. You stop clinging to the idea of permanence and start dancing with change. Life stops feeling like a battle and starts feeling like a song, one you don't need to control, just listen to. You start to love differently too. You stop saying, I love you as a way of claiming and start saying it as a way of releasing. You love people as they are, not as you wish them to be. You love knowing they might leave, knowing they will change, knowing that love's beauty lies in its uncertainty. To love someone truly is to give them freedom. The tighter you hold, the faster they slip away. The looser your grip, the longer love breathes. Detachment doesn't mean indifference. It means loving without fear, caring without demand, giving without expectation. It means looking at someone and thinking, if you stay, I will rejoice. If you leave, I will still be grateful. That's real love, the kind that expands instead of suffocates. And the same applies to everything else. Your job, your identity, your possessions. They're not who you are. You can lose them and still be whole because you never were those things to begin with. When you build your peace on what can vanish, you build it on sand. But when you root your peace in awareness, in the simple fact of being, you become unshakable. This is why the sages and philosophers spoke of inner stillness as the only true home, because it's the only place that doesn't disappear when everything else does. You can walk through loss without being lost. You can witness endings without collapsing. You can face change without fear because you've stopped expecting anything to stay. You stop fighting with reality. You start flowing with it. That's when something incredible happens. The world stops being your enemy. Time stops being your oppressor. You begin to move with life instead of against it. And suddenly everything feels lighter. Not because life got easier, but because you stopped demanding that it be different. You stopped arguing with what is. You began to trust the wisdom of impermanence. You began to see that every ending opens space for something new. Even death, the thing you fear most, is not destruction, it's transformation. It's the final return, the last letting go. Life and death aren't opposites, they're partners. Without one, the other couldn't exist. Every moment you live, you're already dying. And in that death, new life keeps being born. When you understand that, fear dissolves. You stop clinging to your own story and start becoming part of something infinite. You stop saying mine and start saying ours. You stop saying forever and start saying now. And that shift from ownership to awe is where freedom begins. When you stop fighting impermanence, you finally make peace with existence. You realize that everything you've ever tried to protect was never really yours to defend. The people you've lost were never yours to keep. The dreams that died were never yours to own. And even your own body, this fragile vessel of experience, was always borrowed. It's strange at first, almost frightening, to live without claiming. You feel naked, exposed, uncertain. But slowly that fear turns into relief. You begin to understand that not owning means not fearing. If nothing is yours, then nothing can be taken from you. If nothing is permanent, then nothing can truly be lost. The absence of ownership is the presence of freedom. This is what all the great teachers tried to show us, not how to become gods, but how to become free. They knew that the root of human suffering is our refusal to flow with life. We want everything to stay just as it is, even as we change ourselves every second. But life is not meant to be controlled, it's meant to be experienced. Trying to control life is like trying to hold your breath to stop time. You can do it for a moment, but eventually you have to let go and breathe again. That's the rhythm of existence, holding and releasing, rising and falling, living and dying. You think you want control, but what you really want is peace. And peace can never come from control. Peace comes from trust, from the quiet knowing that whatever happens is part of the same vast movement that gave you life in the first place. You were born without asking, you will die without choosing, and everything in between is just life moving through you. You're not the conductor, you're the music. You don't need to understand every note to feel the beauty of the song. The universe doesn't owe you meaning, it offers it every second in the form of existence itself. Look at the sky. The stars don't ask to shine, they just do. The ocean doesn't ask for applause, it just moves. The trees don't seek validation for growing, they simply grow. Everything in nature exists without demanding that life justify itself. Only humans argue with being. Only humans believe that something is missing. You keep asking, what's my purpose? As if purpose were something you could own, something you could pin down and wear like a badge. But purpose isn't a destination, it's a way of being. It's how you walk through life, not where you end up. Your purpose is not in what you hold, it's in how you let go. When you stop trying to own moments, you begin to truly live them. You stop chasing meaning and start noticing it, quietly appearing in every breath, in every small act of awareness. You start to see that existence itself is sacred. You are not here to fix life, but to feel it. You are not here to master it, but to join it. You are not here to hold, but to witness. That's what the mystics meant by awakening. It's not about escaping life, but finally being present for it. When you awaken, the world doesn't change, you do. The noise remains, but it no longer pulls you apart. The chaos continues, but it stops frightening you. You begin to see everything as movement, and yourself as part of it. You begin to see that peace is not the absence of storms, but the ability to stay still within them. You begin to see that love is not the promise of permanence, but the courage to care even when everything ends. This understanding changes how you exist. You stop rushing because you realize you were never behind. You stop competing because you realize there's nowhere to arrive. You stop comparing because no one else can live your life. You stop begging life to be fair because you see it already is. It gives and takes without prejudice, without preference, without attachment. You start to live with an open hand, an open heart, an open mind. You start to forgive more easily because you see everyone's just as lost and fragile as you. You stop needing explanations for every pain because you start to trust that even pain serves its role. You begin to feel a softness inside you that you mistook for weakness before. It's not weakness, it's wisdom. It's the strength of someone who's done fighting with what cannot be changed. It's the quiet power of surrender. Not the surrender of giving up, but the surrender of finally belonging to this moment, to this life, to this truth.
If you've made it this far, something in you has already shifted. You might not notice it yet, but something deep inside you has softened. Something that used to clench when life said no. Something that used to panic when things changed. That small tightening has loosened, even if only a little. That's where freedom begins, not in enlightenment or perfection, but in the quiet spaces where resistance used to live. The truth is, you were never broken, never unworthy, never incomplete. You were just misinformed. You believed what the world told you, that happiness is in having, that love is in possession, that peace is in control. But those were all lies. The truth is far simpler and infinitely more beautiful. Happiness is in presence, love is in freedom, peace is in surrender. You don't need to become something else to find them. You only need to stop pretending that you ever lost them. Life is not out to get you. It's not a test, not a punishment, not a puzzle to solve. It's a river. Always flowing, sometimes calm, sometimes wild, always moving forward. The only real suffering is trying to swim against it. You were taught to chase stability, to fight change, to cling to comfort. But the river doesn't reward those who struggle against it, it carries those who trust it. The art of living isn't about control, it's about rhythm. It's about learning to move when life moves, to rest when life rests, to let go when life takes, and to give when life gives. The ones who understand this don't escape pain, but they stop multiplying it. They stop adding fear to loss, resistance to endings, ego to love. They stop trying to be the author of a story that was never meant to be written by one hand. They become part of the story instead. You can too. You can start now. Let go of the idea that life has to make sense. Let go of the idea that you're running out of time. Let go of the idea that you have to prove anything. You have nothing to prove, nothing to protect, nothing to lose. You can drop the mask, the armor, the endless pretending. You can breathe again. You can exist without striving to be more. The moment you stop trying to hold life still, you realize it was never running away from you, it was waiting for you to stop chasing. The peace you've been looking for was never hidden, it was just buried under your own need to control. Let it go. Let the past dissolve. Let the future unfold. Let the present moment be enough. Because this breath, this heartbeat, this silence is all that's ever been real. Everything else is memory or imagination. Everything else is story. When you understand that, you stop fearing death because you realize you were never truly alive until now. You stop fearing loss because you realize there's nothing that can truly be taken. You stop fearing change because you realize change is what keeps life alive. And most of all, you stop fearing love because you realize love was never meant to be possessed. It was meant to be shared, experienced, and released like light through open hands. The people who pass through your life, the moments that fill your days, the beauty that finds you unexpectedly, they were never meant to stay forever. They were meant to remind you that forever only exists in presence. This is the paradox that every great philosopher, mystic, and poet has tried to teach. When you stop clinging to life, you begin to truly live. When you stop trying to own love, you begin to truly love. When you stop demanding peace, you begin to feel it. And when you stop trying to become someone, you begin to remember what you already are. Pure awareness, untouched by loss, unbroken by time, infinite beneath the illusion of identity. So take this truth with you, not as a belief, but as a practice. Every time you lose something, let it teach you that nothing was ever yours. Every time life changes, let it remind you that it's supposed to. Every time your heart breaks, let it open wider. And every time you breathe, let it be enough. You don't need eternity to be whole. You just need now. The world doesn't owe you meaning, it gives you presence. The rest is up to you. Live softly. Hold nothing. Love freely. Let go.